What happens when you make the wrong turn? When you doubt yourself? Do you blame your map? The people traveling beside you? Or do you trust your instincts and continue into the unknown? Most visitors are welcomed with a simple introduction, a greeting, a handshake, a name. But what happens when the visitors are not from this world, not from this dimension? How do they measure who we are? How do they learn what we fear? And what happens when their introduction is not a greeting, but a challenge? After all, how well do you really know someone? How well do you know those you call your friends? More importantly, how well do you know yourself? Tonight's transmission concerns Mara and her companions as they discover that some games are not played to win, but only to learn.
Have now entered the cyclic of mind and matter, where time is elusive and reality slips into the unfamiliar. The stories you are about to hear are submissions from dimensions far beyond, except for ordinary, challenging your understanding of truth and bid you towards the supernatural. Will this be the last broadcast?
The road had curved the same way 5 times. By the 6th, nobody in the car was pretending not to notice. Yara sat in the back seat drawing circles in the fogged-up window with the tip of her finger, rubbing them out with the side of her hand and drawing them again. Up front, Mara leaned over the wheel hard enough to make her shoulders ache. It was the same turn, Mara said. Again. If the GPS was working, Leanne muttered, staring at the dead map on her phone, we wouldn't be having this problem. Marisol let her head fall back against the seat. I just want to get out of the car for like 30 seconds. I need air. I'm serious. I'm freaking out. Nobody argued with that. When Mara pulled over, the girls stepped out into the damp dark one by one, stiff-legged and irritated. The road behind them was empty. So was the road ahead. Trees pressed in on both sides, black and close and endless. Marisol squatted in the gravel and rubbed the back of her neck. Yara tilted her face to the sky. The clouds hung low enough to feel personal. I think, Marisol said at last, we're absolutely cooked out here. That got a tired laugh out of all of them. At some point, Yara said, it has to become daytime. Not if we're dead, Marisol said. Can you not? Mara snapped. And then they heard it. Faint, tiny, warped by distance. Music. The girls froze. Leanne turned first. Did you hear that? Marisol frowned. It sounded like an ice cream truck, Yara said. Nobody said anything for a second. Then Marisol exhaled sharply and opened the driver's door, and then Mara got in. Fine. Whatever. Let's just go. Back in the car with the door shut and the locks clicking down, the mood lifted just enough for Marisol to mutter, "This is what happens when you let women drive." Even Mara laughed at that. They took the next bend. the same one they'd taken all night. And then Mara slammed her foot against the brake. Yara grabbed both of her shoulders from the back seat. Don't move. There, caught in the headlights, stood a man in a crossing guard uniform. For a second, nobody spoke. Then Leanne squinted through the windshield and said, "Is that a crossing guard?" "A crossing guard," Mara repeated, but it came out sounding more like an accusation than a question. "At 3 a.m, in the woods?" Marisol said, narrow and reflective beneath the flashing yellow sign he carried. The man lifted one white glove and motioned calmly to the right. All 4 girls turned and stared. There was a road there now. None of them had seen it before. "Okay," Mara said with both hands clenched around the steering wheel so tightly the tendons stood out pale beneath her skin. "Let's just take in for a moment that there is a crossing guard in the middle of the woods at 3 a.m, and we're just all supposed to act like this is normal?" No one answered her right away. The road ahead was narrow and slick, bordered on both sides by dense black trees that should have moved in the storm, but didn't. The headlights pushed outward over the wet pavement and trunks and branches, but the dark beyond them looked too dense to be real, like the world ended 3 feet past what a card could illuminate. Off to the right, where there had been nothing before, a new road now split away into the woods. From the back seat, Yara leaned forward just enough for the dashboard light to catch the sharp edge of her cheekbone. "I think we're past normal," she said. Her voice was low, but not calm. It had that tightened, deliberate quality of someone trying to hold on to reason with shaking hands. "Trying to grasp the threads of reality right now feels unrealistic," Yara said. "Unrealistic," Leanne turned in her seat and stared at her. Even her disbelief sounded clipped and controlled, like she was trying to file the impossible into some usable category. "What's realistic about any of this?" "Oh my God," Marisol muttered from the other side of the back seat, dragging a hand down her face. "Here we go, one of Yara's theoretical matrix tangents." Mara gave a short, humorless exhale. "Can we not do this right now? My point is," she pointed through the windshield, "there's a crossing guard standing in the middle of the woods where a crossing guard should not be. And not only that, look at him. Actually, look at him." They did. He stood at least 6'6", maybe taller, though it was hard to tell where the road ended and he began. He had the proportions of a man who spent his entire life working with his body. Broad through the shoulders, long through the arms, narrow at the waist by repetition and strain. But there was no flesh in him to explain the shape. No visible bone, no tendons, no organs, nothing inside him that should have been capable of holding him upright. The headlights slipped partly through the outer edges of him, and beneath his celadon translucence, slow rivers of light rolled upward and folded back down again in molten bands, like the glowing interior of a lava lamp given the height and intent. Where a face should have been, there was only blank suggestions of one. No eyes, no mouth, no nostrils, no expression. Just a smooth, mannequin-like absence.
He's green, Mara whispered, and now her voice had thinned down to something almost childlike with disbelief. He's green, and he looks like a fucking lava lamp that landed in the car and stayed there. Leanne reached over and gripped Mara's shoulders. "We can do this," she said, and her voice had a hardness to it now. The kind people use when they know panic is close and they're trying to outrun it with logic. "If we take the road to the right and drive fast enough that he can't get his hand on the door, we'll be fine. But sitting here doing nothing is not going to keep us safe." Marisol gave a quick, ugly laugh and immediately regretted it. "I don't want to drive past him, because what if it's a trap? We're really going to trust some random guy in an orange crossing guard suit that looks like an alien standing in the middle of nowhere?" As if hearing her, the crossing guard moved. He did not walk. One moment he stood in the distance, framed at the edge of the headlights. The next, he was farther down the road at the mouth of the turn to the right, as though the space between them had simply been removed. His posture did not change. One arm lifted, 2 fingers extended, a silent, patient gesture downward toward the road that had not existed before. All 4 girls froze. His uniform was purple now. "Oh my God," Marisol said. This time there was no sarcasm left in her voice at all. It came out naked and frightened. "Oh my God," Mara echoed, staring straight ahead. "Just go," Leanne snapped. Mara pressed the pedal. The car lunged forward. The tire hissed over the wet pavement, and the headlights jumped. Mara kept her eyes on the road for exactly 2 seconds before looking sideways, because not looking felt worse. As they drew level with him, the crossing guard did not turn his head, did not sway, did not seem to breathe. Up close he was worse, larger, impossibly self-contained. The celadon outer layer of him had the faint softness of poured silicone, but beneath his inner light moved in deliberate slow currents, glowing and dimming in layered colors that no human body should have been able to contain. There were still no organs visible within him, no structural anatomy, just form, upright and impossible, held together by nothing the eye could understand. Then thunder rolled, but it did not sound like thunder should. It came first as a deep, metallic vibration, then folded back over itself in a sequence of echoes, as if the sky had said the same thing 3 times from different distances. The sound reverberated through the trees and under the car and inside the girl's ribs. Marisol folded her arms around herself. "I don't like that." "Like what?" Yara asked, but her eyes were already on the sky. "The lightning," Marisol said, squinting through the windshield. "It's wrong. It's just off." A flash split the dark. The whole world lit up in a color that did not belong to weather. It looked like it was yellow. Yellow that has gone sick at the center. The edges had a dim, burnt orange, like the storm had been illuminated from beyond by old theater lamps. The trees shone for half a second like cutouts. The road gleamed like wet bones. Then the rain began, only it wasn't rain. At first it came softly, a faint tapping on the roof hood. Not water's soft patter, but something rounder, denser. Like small rubber fingertips drumming against the metal in an eerie, steady rhythm. Thud, thud, thud. There was almost no wind. That was the worst part. The sound kept falling, but the trees did not move. The branches held still. Nothing rustled in the brush. No frogs, no insects, no distant movement of any kind. The entire forest seemed to have withdrawn into itself, leaving only the road, the car, the storm, and the sound of those soft impacts falling from a dead sky. Mara swallowed. That's interesting. In what way? Leanne asked. In the way? The very bad way? Mara said. There are lights inside the rain. Yara leaned forward between the seats. Yeah, she said, and for the first time there was a real unease in her voice. I see it too. There's something in it. Marisol gave a brittle laugh that didn't even resemble humor. What do you mean, there's something in it? What the hell would it be inside water? It's not water, Leanne said. The thunder came again, long and wrong, and then the bolt of that sick-colored lightning struck the road just ahead of them. All four girls screamed. The brightness lingered a fraction too long in the space left behind, hanging just above the road. Something rotated. A coin. Not metal, not solid, something holographic and game bright, spinning slowly in place, catching the wrong lightning in the impossible colors. Mara eased off the gas. You all see that, right? Yes, Leanne said immediately. Yes, Mara said. Oh my God. Mara whispered. Yes. The storm thickened. Whatever was falling came down harder now, enough to obscure the road in bouncing, light-filled impacts. Mara cursed underneath her breath and pulled the car to the shoulder. Great, she said. Now the fear in her voice was trying to turn itself into anger, because anger was easier to steer. Just great. We're lost, we're almost out of gas, and now shit is glitching in and out of reality. I think we're in a fucking video game. Leanne put a hand on her shoulder again. Mara shook it off instantly. No, Mara said, no. I know what reality feels like, and this is not part of it. We went in circles on the other road, and now we have a floating coin and a light inside rain and some Celadon clear see-through crossing guard teleporting around us like he owns the place. I don't like this. I just want to go home. The car went quiet. Then Yara looked out her window and said, so softly it nearly vanished under the thudding storm, we all want to go home. That hit the car like another weather system. Leanne was first to move. She leaned forward, the base of the windshield where the strange impact had began, collecting in the narrow seam between the hood and the glass. "There," she said. "Look." Dozens of translucent spheres had piled there, marble size, and a faintly blue lit from within. Their surfaces trembled with an almost living tension. Inside one, something tiny shifted. "There are little robots in the rain," Leanne said. "What?" Mara breathed. "Nanobites, maybe. Something like that." As if the words themselves had triggered them, the spheres began to open. They didn't crack. They unfolded. Clear, silicone-like seams peeled back in delicate sections, and from inside each tiny sphere emerged a metallic creature no larger than a grape, jointed, gleaming, many-legged, unfolding itself like a precise little spider made of polished titanium and cold blue light. Marisol recoiled. No, I hate that. I hate this so much." The tiny machine spilled down the hood and onto the road, where they gathered in the streaming dark. At first they moved like insects, then like liquid, then like something with intention. Lightning flashed, and the floodwater on the road answered it. What had looked like ordinary pooling black runoff rose in a thin, metallic-like spikes, thousands of slick, narrow points thrusting upward at once, then collapsing back into a fluid sheet. Every lightning strike made it happen again and again. An unnatural, magnetic response that shivered across the road like a living nervous system. The nanobots streamed over it. They clustered and separated and climbing over one another in a complex geometric waves. Then, in the distance, they began to build, not randomly, systematically. First, a drilling rig in a miniature form, its shape wrong but recognizable, like something that had studied human industry from afar away, and decided approximation was enough. Then a siphon, then a narrow translucent pipes shot through them with amber light, then a canister, then a pump assembly, all part of a hologram, part active machine, part swarming body. The girls watched in paralyzed silence as the thing reached down into the earth, and a moment later, a tube extended from the structure and connected itself to the car with a soft, metallic click. The fuel gauge twitched, then rose. "The robots," Marisol said, and her voice had gone high and paper thin with disbelief. "The robots are filling our car with gas." A crossing guard appeared directly in front of them. All four girls screamed. Mara slammed the car into reverse so hard the seats belts locked. Gravel spat from under the trees. The Celadon figurehead of them stood fixed in the headlights, his orange uniform all impossible height and faceless glow. "Slow down," Marisol cried, grabbing the back of Mara's seat. Slow down, we don't want to crash." Mara swerved, corrected, shoved the car back into drive. As the vehicle jerked forward, more figures emerged from the storm. One in orange at the left side of the road, one in purple beside him, one in neon green on the right, one in neon yellow farther up. All of them tall, all of them faceless, all of them lit from within. They pointed down the road. The nanobites had changed color now. Their inner blue shifted towards magenta, and they raced ahead in luminous streams along the road. As they ran, they assembled something new. A toll booth rose from the dark. Counter, window, barrier arm, roof, all constructed from swarming metallic particles and shimmering projected geometry. Above it, in bright segmented letters that formed piece by piece in the air, words appeared. Game on. Then a voice synthetic and cheerful, in a way no living voice should have ever been under those circumstances, boomed out into the dead forest. Proceed to the toll booth to initiate the simulation. The barrier arm lifted. Beyond it, the road opened into a circular platform divided into glowing sections, each one marked with different icons, coins, asteroids, targets, symbols they didn't yet understand. Like choices on a start screen of a game none of them had agreed to play. Mara slammed on the brakes. The car stopped just short of the booth. No one spoke. The voice cracked through the storm again. Proceed to the toll booth to initiate the simulation.
Most roads lead home, and wrong turns can lead to new destinations, some beyond our beliefs. Mara and her friends are now at a crossroads with no signs, no maps, only crossing guards, and a proposition to play a game. Video games are a conduit, a way to become something we're not, a hero, a villain, or a fire team. Namara and her team must overcome their doubts and fears to venture into the unknown. Will they make it? Can they win? Will they be able to submit their story to the last broadcaster?
As the car rolled beneath the toll booth, a bright game chime rang out above them, playful and precise, like the quick rise of a xylophone scale, tapped by a round wooden mallet, climbing higher and higher before ending in 3 sharp tones. Ding, ding, ding. Neon holographic letters flashed in front of the windshield. Players, ready? Inside the booth, one of the crossing guards stood in perfect stillness. His uniform was purple now, his celadon translucent body glowing softly from within, the molten colors inside him rising and falling in a slow lava lamp drifts. As the car crept closer, he extended his arm out through the window where a toll attendant might normally collect cash. The limb kept stretching longer and longer than any human arm should have been capable of reaching. But it wasn't human. Its silicone clear flesh lengthening with sickening elegance until his hand knocked on Mara's window. She reluctantly opened the window whirring, cutting the silence like a calm wind before a storm. The center of his palm split open like a tiny concealed door. From within, a thin mechanical arm unfolded, joint by joint, and presented a ticket. The synthetic announcer's voice crackled overhead. Please take the ticket to continue the game. All 4 girls looked at one another. Mara kept both her hands welded to the steering wheel and shook her head violently. Leanne leaned across her and reached through the stale electric air of the front seat and snatched the ticket from the little metal hand. The instant her fingers closed around it, the car jumped. Magenta cubes burst across the hood, roof, and doors in a shower of blocky, glowing pixels. They skittered over the windshield, flowed through the windows, and washed through the interior in a bright little geometric flickers. The seat changed first, becoming black and white checkered. Then the dashboard, then the floor mats. Neon seams lit up across the doors and underneath the dash. Outside of the car repainted itself in layers of bright, cartoonishly glossy color until it looked less like a sedan and more like something out of an arcade machine. Too vibrant, too toy-like, too polished to belong on a real road. Marisol screamed. "Look at us." The others did. Mara was no longer dressed in her ordinary clothes. She wore armor now, sleek, fitted, unmistakably game-like, with bright detailing layered over her shoulders and chest. Leanne, in the passenger seat, had become something like an archer, with a narrow, armored silhouette and a quiver-like rig crossing her back. Yara looked like some kind of warlock or mage, draped in dark, layered fabric and strange, glowing symbols. Marisol stared down at herself and made a face of pure horror. "Oh my God," she said. "Oh my God, I look like Shrek. I'm an orc." The announcer cut in, delighted. "This is... Wait, your turn." The road ahead began to move. The trees bent first, then the grass, then the very surface of the earth. Great waves of dirt and brush swelled upward in rolling motions like ocean water gathering before a storm. Except they did not crash. They oscillated. The entire landscape rose and sank in circular patterns, faster and faster, as though the woods had become liquid and were beginning to be stirred from beneath. The road twisted with it. And ahead of the car, the ground opened into a vast spiraling depression. A whirlpool made of soil, rock, roots, and uprooted trunks, all turning towards a single center. The girls clutched their seats. Marisol fumbled for the door handle, but before she could yank it open, the crossing guards were there, one at each side of the car. Orange by Mara's door, purple by Leanne's, neon green by Yara's, neon yellow by Marisol's. All of them gliding alongside the moving vehicle without walking, their bodies hovering just above the ground as if attached to the car by invisible rails. Their faceless heads remained angled forward, but their presence alone was enough to make all four girls stop trying to escape. The car continued to roll. The whirlpool ahead drew in branches, stones, clumps of earth, then whole chunks of land. A massive ball of soil and rock rose overhead, rotating once against the storm-dark sky before slamming down ahead of them with a canyon-sized impact. The world went flat. Dust mushroomed upward, then slowly settled in soft gray curtains over the newly leveled ground. And from that settling came a silence. Then the nanobots returned. They emerged from the road in a wide ring and began to move in formation.
circling a huge perimeter in precise ritual-like patterns. They stomped and leapt in pulses of synchronized light. Stomp, stomp, leap. Stomp, stomp, leap. As they moved, their bodies flashed in bright colors: red, yellow, blue, green, orange. Their rhythm grew louder and more insistent until all at once they buried themselves in the ground. The earth trembled. Then a great colored platform rose from beneath the surface. They looked like enormous Simon tiles arranged in a circle, each one wide enough to hold several compact cars. Their surface glowed from within, the lights rippling under clear panels as if the colors themselves were alive. When they finished rising, the entire platform hummed, then sang out in the clean electric tones. Dong, ding, dong, dong, ding, dong. Mara stared through the windshield. Is this a video game? Her words echoed back at her from the strange acoustics of the open field. Game, game, game. Above the arena, huge metallic gold holographic letters spiraled down through the air. Round 1. Behind them, the toll booth sank into the ground in a quick, cartoonish motion, vanishing almost faster than the eye could follow. But the crossing guards didn't disappear. They now stood in repeated color patterns all around the outer perimeter of the arena. Orange, purple, neon green, neon yellow. Orange, purple, neon green, neon yellow. Forming a ring of watchers to make one thing very clear. There will be no leaving. The arena gave a low mechanical hum, and then their car rejected them. Its doors sprang open all at once with a bright electronic hiss, and the whole vehicle tilted just enough to throw the girls out in a graceless tangle of limbs, armor, and curses. Mara caught herself on one hand and one knee. Leanne stumbled, recovered, and immediately began to look around. Yara landed harder, robes dragging across the glowing floor. Marisol rolled onto her side and sat up with a groan. "Oh, come on," she snapped. "I'm so sick of getting rejected by things." The car remained where it was behind them, idling low and bright and ridiculous, as if dumping them out in the middle of an impossible game arena was standard procedure. Blocks of light burst into being in front of the girls, glowing cubes assembled, snapping together in quick cartoonish clicks. A narrow bridge built itself outward, section by section, every piece locking into place with cheerful game-like precision. It stretched over the lit floor, towards a raised circular platform in the middle of the arena. The platform rose next. A round metal disc lifted smoothly from below, ringed with a low railing. 5 podiums pushed up and around its edge, each one lit in a different color from within: red, yellow, blue, green, and orange. On the face of each podium were 2 large glowing symbols:
a plus, and a minus sign. Marisol stared at it. If this isn't the most obvious trap, I don't know what is. It's not subtle, Leanne said. Yara wasn't looking at the platform. She was looking beyond it. The far side of the arena had begun to move. At first, it was only the dirt, shivering in long, raised lines, as though something just beneath the surface were cutting towards them. Then the first machine climbed into view. A giant spider dragged itself over the rise of the terrain, all black, jointed limbs and hard red light in the seams of its body. Every step it took, it punched into the ground with enough force to split the dirt up and rocks all over the place. Then came the others. Millipede-like bodies surfaced in sections and disappeared again, their long, segmented backs flashing in the light before plunging beneath the earth. Smaller insectile things clustered in the distance in restless swarms, clicking and shifting over one another like a living static. Marisol took one step backwards. Nope. Leanne turned towards the bridge. They want us here, obviously. Mara followed her gaze to the center of the platform, then back to the spider. Obviously. The creatures did not rush them yet. They only kept moving, closing in distance, surfacing, circling, making the fields feel smaller by the second. So the girls crossed. Yara stepped onto the bridge first, slow and cautious. Her boots lighting the panels faintly with each footfall. Leanne followed close behind. Mara came next, her jaw clenched, shoulders tight. Marisol brought up the rear, muttering a stream of low, furious complaints that blurred together under her breath. The bridge held. By the time they reached the center platform, the podiums had begun to pulse in order. Red, yellow, blue, green, orange. Mara looked around at all 5 stations. There are only 5, but there are 4 of us. Then, one of us has to double up, I guess, Leanne said. That's not the worst part of any of this. The nearest podium flashed. Red, red, blue. The pattern hung in the air above the center of the platform, glowing there like a command. Then the announcer's voice came back, bright, fake, and entirely too pleased with itself. Please, press to start. Please, press to start. The plus sign on the podiums lit up. Nobody moved for a second. Then the giant spider in the distance lifted itself higher, its front legs spreading wide and hissing. It's red, red, blue, Leanne said quickly. I know what it is, Mara snapped, though her voice had that frayed edge to it now. Too much adrenaline stretched over too little patience and fear. They took their places. Leanne hit red. Mara hit the second red. Yara hit blue. A clean 3-note chime rang out. The spider stopped. The millipedes froze, half emerged from the ground. Even the smaller insects seemed to pause.
as if the entire field had been put on hold. Then the pattern changed. Red, red, blue, green. The girls looked at one another, now understanding just enough to keep going. Marisol shifted sideways so she could cover the extra color, while the other girls stayed in place. They hit the sequence together. Another chime. The platform lowered a little beneath their feet. Not all the way, just enough to make their stomachs drop. Mara stared at the floor, then out at the field, then at the glowing podium in front of her. I really can't handle any more of this, she said. No one spoke. Her voice shook harder the second time. I really can't handle any more of this shit. She stepped back from the podium, breathing too fast now, looking around for the stairs, for an exit, for anything that looked like a choice instead of a command. The stairs disappeared. Not crumbled, not retracted. They were simply there one second and gone the next, as though somebody had deleted them from the program. At the same time, the entire world shifted color. It was not like a lamp being switched on or a filter laid over their eyes. It was deeper than that. The moonlight, the air, the reflective sheen on the road, the dust still clinging to the ground. Everything that had once belonged to pale blue night was washed in a deep blood-red glow. A figure appeared below the platform. She was shaped like the simple possible idea of a woman. The kind you might see on a bathroom sign or stamped into the side of a public building. Smooth, faceless, iconographic. But she was three-dimensional, 6 feet tall at first, neon green and translucent, with no projector beam connecting her to anything. She simply stood there and looked up. Rage quitting is not allowed, she said. Mara stared at her in disbelief. I can quit whenever I want. That's the whole point of having free will. The holographic figure grew. In the space of a breath, she doubled, and then doubled again, her smooth head rising until she stood at least 15 feet tall. She leaned in over the platform with an awful stillness. Leanne grabbed Mara's arm so hard her nails bit through the new game armor. I don't think she's fucking around, she said. Mara, get back to your area. The giant, faceless woman bit closer still, until her blank green head filled half her vision. Rage quitting, she repeated, her voice now coming from everywhere all at once, is not allowed. Then she collapsed downward, sucked cleanly into the ground like a file closing on a computer screen. The red light vanished. At once the world returned to its proper colors. The wrong storm light, the strange moon, the bruised sky. The arena flashed again. Red, red, blue, green. The pattern rang out across the enormous colorful pads in clean electronic tones. The girls suddenly became much quieter and then returned to their stations and pressed the sequence in order. Red, red, blue, green. The platform sank the rest of the way down. Then it rotated. The whole thing turned 90 degrees, aligning them with the next stretch of road, so that the toll booth now sat directly behind them. Before any of them could say a word, their brightly repainted car rose out of nowhere.
gliding forward, and dropped them neatly back into their seats as though some invisible hand had picked them up and sorted them into place. Marisol screamed in frustration. That, she said, clutching the armrest, was freaky. Above the windshield, in huge gold holographic letters that descended down and spun in place, said, "Winner." The car began to move again. The bright-colored arena sank away in sections. The giant glowing pads lowering into the earth while the world ahead unfurled with a soft, rushing snap, as if a carpet was being rolled out. Except it wasn't carpet. It was reality reforming. The road stretched forward in a blur of solid color and game world geometry, then settled into place with a hard visual click. The toll booth behind them leaned forward and seemed to push them onward, urging the car towards a thicker wall of forest where the trees crowded so close they nearly brushed the sides. The road was still a road, but now it looked older, cracked in places and lifted in jagged seams. Low yellow arrows glowed along the edges, pointing them forward. Ahead, hovering just over the center line, spun a giant ticket made of light. A glowing number 2 hovered in its middle. "I guess you have to drive through it?" Yara said. Mara didn't argue. She pressed the gas. The car shot forward, brightly lit and ridiculous, tearing through the dark towards the spinning ticket. The moment the hood clipped through it, there came a sound from somewhere ahead, like hundreds or thousands of bats taking flight all at once. The road dropped. Not literally. It just widened and lowered enough that they could suddenly see over it. Small shapes rushed in the distance. Then 3 holographic panels dropped into place inside of the car, hovering in front of them like a menu screen. Each panel showed one of them. A voice crackled through the speakers. "Pick your beginning character." The girls stared at each other in confusion. Leanne raised her eyebrows and looked at Mara. "You want to go first?" Mara snapped back immediately, nerves still frayed and raw. "Just because I'm the driver doesn't mean I need to be the first player." "I'll do it then," Marisol snapped. At once, the trees nearest the road folded backward into the ground like a trap door. Beyond them was a vast, flat field of grass stretching for miles, too level and clean to be natural. Then, in the far distance, a giant purple holographic cube shot up into the sky so high it seemed to touch the upper edge of the world before slamming back down with no visible impact. The ground erupted. Bats burst up from below. Not normal bats. Pixelated arcade bats. Giant, glowing, jagged. Their wings the size of airplanes. Their bodies outlined in bright, game-like wonder, and their eyes burning with synthetic color. One after another, they clawed their way out into the field was full of them. Hundreds, maybe thousands in all, flapping towards the car in a shrieking cloud of terror. "Oh my God," Marisol screamed. "Oh my God, I do not want to do this." One of the bats slammed into the side of the car. A horizontal bar flashed across the windshield. Vehicle health, 80%. We're taking damage, Yara yelled. Marisol, acting on pure panic, pulled at her door handle to escape. Then a missile launched from the car somewhere beneath and blew a hole through one of the bats. She froze. What the hell? Another bat swooped low. Mara, with the same panic, tried to jerk the wheel to evade the bat. But then, a beam shot out and clipped the creature clean across its chest. All four girls stared at one another. Then, slowly, a look passed among them. Not safety, not calm, but understanding. Oh, Yara said. Mara hit the gas and swung the car hard to the left. Okay, she said. It seems like if we pull different parts of the car, we have ammunition. The words coming out was kind of like a half laugh and half a command. Okay, shoot that one. Marisol yanked her handle. A missile shot out. Leanne pulled hers, then a beam. Another bat exploded into bright pixeled shards. 3 new holographic panels dropped down in front of them. Level up. Options lit the screens. Damage. Reload speed. Blast radius. Shield strength and health. Yara leaned forward so fast that she almost headbutted the front seats. Oh my god. It's a bullet hell roguelite game. When you have bombardments of thousands of enemies wave after wave. Liam actually grinned. Hell yeah. Marisol, still half breathless, fired another missile and laughed out loud. This is horrifying, but fun. Yeah, Mara said, banking the car around another wave as the beam fire lit the dark field blue and gold. What a weird way for the aliens to make first contact. But it is what it is, and it's awesome. Wave after wave came. They upgraded the car. More health, faster fire, wider spread, shield reinforcement. The bats came harder. Then the trees joined in, ripping giant boulders out of the earth and hurling them towards the field. The girls ducked and swore and shouted over each other, calling out targets, buying upgrades, finding a rhythm as if they'd always been meant to man a war machine together. Then the field went still. The final wave arrived. It rose in the distance like a nightmare dragged upright. A deer's head. Only the head. It was enormous, suspended above the field as though mounted on invisible shoulders. Its eye sockets were hollow except for a deep red glow smoldering far back in the emptiness. Its head tilted once, slowly, and then it opened its mouth. A beam of red-white force, the width and length of a school bus, tore across the field and hit the car head-on. The health bar plummeted to 44%. Holy shit, Mara shouted. The deer fired again. Red holographic stones ripped themselves into the air and slammed down around them. The whole field shook. Trees bent sideways. The girls screamed, ducked, but kept firing. Upgrade something, Leanne yelled. We already did, Mara shouted back, scanning the flickering panels. Everything's at a level 10. We're maxed out. Then what do we do then? Nobody answered fast enough. Then the glove compartment opened as if it was listening to them. A small blue rail of light rolled neatly into Leanne's lap, and it said power up. At the same time, a compartment in the center console split open and spilled yellow light. Leanne grabbed the glowing object and rammed it into the slot. The deer hit them again. 25%. The car began to shake. Not rough shaking, transformational shaking. Deep, internal movement, as though all its parts had remembered they could become something else. The whole vehicle rose into the air, spinning once while the girl screamed. And when it came back down, it wasn't a car anymore. It was a tank. A ridiculous, oversized, glorious thing. Gatling guns, missile banks, armored plating on every side. A rotating gunner platform opened at the top, and one of the girls ascended into position. Nobody even had time to process what was happening. She gripped the mounted cannon with pure delight and insanity for fun. "Let's do this," she screamed. The deer blasted them again. Mara saw a glowing heart hologram off to the left and punched the gas. The tank lurched sideways, crushed straight through a patch of rising stone, and hit the pickup. Tank health, 50%, beamed in bright yellow holographic light over the windshield, then slowly faded away. Then a green lightning icon flickered in the field ahead. "Get that!" Yara shouted. Mara drove for it. The tank lifted a foot off the ground as the power-up hit. Purple light racing through its armor, punching through vents and missile tubes. The next blast they fired hit the deer square in the skull and dropped its health hard to 15%. "Finish it!" Leanne yelled. The gunner on top whooped and hollered as if she was a maniac and unloaded everything. Gatling fire, missile burst, whatever the hell the tank had become capable of. The deer's head split with a streak of light and collapsed inward on itself, red glow extinguishing in a spray of fractured hologram pixels. The field went silent. Then everything snapped back. The tank shuddered and shrank and folded itself back into the car. The ground turned to normal. Trees surged back upright. The road reappeared beneath them as if none of it had ever existed before. The car settled onto the pavement and rolled forward, slower now. Inside, the girls were screaming and laughing at the same time. "Yeah! Heck yes! That was awesome!" Mara was grinning so hard it almost hurt. Leanne slapped the dashboard like it had personally done her proud. Marisol was half folded over laughing, still drunk on adrenaline. Yara, for once, wasn't trying to explain a damn thing. Ahead, at the top of the next rise, they saw the silhouette of a refinery. The car crested the hill, Mara and Leanne looked at each other first, then the girls in the back. No one said a word, but every one of them looked terrified. The car rolled to a slow, mechanical stop in front of the refinery gate. Then it powered down. The neon glow faded from the dashboard. The engine exhaled one last tired hum and went quiet. For a second, none of the girls moved. Then Leanne looked through the windshield at the rusted chain link gate and the refinery beyond it. A maze of catwalks and pipes and steel towers and shadows. I guess, she said, her voice thinner than she wanted it to be, this is where we get out? Mara let out a dry laugh that held no real humor. Of course it is, she said. Of course this is where we get out. The gate began to open with a long metal groan. Inside the yard, zombies stood in scattered clusters, swaying gently from side to side as if rocked by some private tide. Construction helmets sat crooked on their heads. Their safety vests glimmered faintly in the low industrial light. Some leaned against the railings, some stood perfectly upright, some seemed to be waiting for a cue that had not yet arrived. The girls stepped out one by one. The air smelled like rust, wet dirt, and old fuel. Marisol made a face. I hate this place already. No sooner had she said it than one of the zombies took a slow step backward into the patch of shadow and vanished. Not walked out of sight, vanished. What the hell? Yara said. That's not usually what zombies do. Then again, zombies only used to exist behind screens, but here we are, Leanne muttered sarcastically. A snarl cracked through the dark. Then something slammed into Marisol's back. She flew forward with a sharp cry, hit the concrete hard, and coughed twice, trying to suck the air back into her lungs. What the fuck was that? She gasped. The others rushed to her immediately, crouching around her, trying to pull her upright. As they did, the sword strapped to Marisol's back slid free of its own accord. It rose above her shoulder, spinning in the air with bright metallic hum until she grabbed the handle on instinct. The blade gave off a tuning fork ring. Then it jerked her upright. Then it moved her to the left, right, up, down, and forward. Hey! Hey! It pulled her so fast her boots skidded against the ground. She stumbled straight into something solid and rotten. A zombie blinked into visibility just long enough for them to see its chest, its milky eyes, the torn skin of its mouth. Then Leanne's bow began to hum. Every time she angled it towards a certain section of the refinery yard, the string vibrated harder, brighter, like a defining rod for the unseen. It's tracking them, she said. Our weapons are tracking them. Another invisible shape barreled into Yara and knocked her flat. She hit the ground hard, the air punching out of her, and a dead weight crashed down on top of her shoulders, pinning her there. Her robes tore under the invisible clawed hands she couldn't fully see. Then Marisol moved. She planted her feet, lifted both arms high over her head, clasped her hands together into one heavy fist, and brought them down in a savage arc across the thing's back. There was a crack, a wet, splintering snap of bone. The body collapsed instantly, all its dead weight dropping onto Yara before Marisol grabbed it by the shoulder and hauled it off. As it rolled away, the zombie flickered into view at last. Construction vest, ruined mouth, gray skin, one arm bent wrong beneath it. Yara sucked in a breath and shoved herself upright. Marisol stared down at the corpse, then at her own hands. "Are you kidding me?" she snapped. "We have to fight invisible zombies?" A screech went up in the distance, then another. Then the whole refinery came alive. Shuffling footsteps broke into uneven rushes, snarls, bone snaps, guttural wails. Things rushed at them from every direction, some visible, some only guessed by sound. The movement, panic, started to crest. Yara's staff amulet lit up in a violent pulse. She slammed the butt of the staff against the ground. A ring of pale force burst outward. The refinery lights overhead flickered, then burned brighter, bathing the yard in a cold, spectral glow. Under that glow, the zombies became visible. Not fully flesh, not fully ghost, but enough. Muscle and tendon caught the light, ribs beneath skin, face half revealed in strips of brightness. Yara breathed hard and muttered, "I was trying so hard not to say you shall not pass." Even Mara barked out a startled laugh at that. Then the fight was on. Leanne's arrows found shapes before her eyes did. Marisol's sword dragged invisible bodies into sight. Mara fought like she drove, fast, furious, practical. Yara kept slamming her staff down, washing the yard in pulses of revealing light. One by one, the zombies dropped. Then the ground changed. It softened beneath their feet. Without warning, concrete became something wet, sucking, and unstable like quicksand. 1 second they were standing, the next they were sinking. Above them, red holographic numbers flashed into existence. 10, 9, 8. "Oh no," Marisol said. 7, 6. The ground swallowed them faster. 5, 4. They dropped through the refinery floor as though it had never been a skin. It had only been a skin over something else. They landed hard in a room. The dim pink of a Pepto-Bismol left too long in the heat. The light was so low and strange, it had flattened everything into a soft, sickly glow. Metal walls sweated faintly. The air was cool and still. Marisol looked around wildly. Now what? A door slid open at the far side of the room, and far beyond it came the faint, unmistakable melody of an ice cream truck. All 4 girls turned. At the end of the next hallway stood 2 crossing guards, still, silent, waiting. Beyond them was another room. It was blindingly white at first glance. Seamless walls, seamless floor, no visible source of light, everything so clean it looked artificial even for this place. 4 diner chairs sat in a line beneath flashing yellow triangles that pointed downward as if to say quite plainly, "Sit." They did. The chairs rotated, and as they turned, the room changed. White became chrome, chrome became glass, glass became pastel tile and polished metal trim. The sterile room bloomed into something warm, nostalgic, and impossible. An ice cream shop, as if it was remembered by a civilization that had only ever studied diners through dreams. By the time the chairs stopped, the girls were seated at the counter. Across from them sat green, clear beings. Themselves. No uniforms now, no crossing guard gloves, no signs or instructions. Their faces were blank, but not expressionless. They glowed differently when they seemed to feel something. One of them looked at Mara. Mara, exhausted and furious, still unwilling to act impressed, asked the first question. "What is all this for?" The being said nothing. Instead, it placed 4 old-fashioned glass dishes on the counter, one in front of each of them. Its voice, when it came out, was soft enough almost to disappear beneath the low hum of the shop. "What flavor?" Mara blinked in frustration. "Mint chocolate chip." The being looked at Leanne. "Chocolate cherry," she said. At Yara, vanilla. At Marisol, strawberry. The being turned away, its hands moved with slow mechanical grace, assembling each ice cream exactly as requested. No scoops lifted from visible tubs. The flavors simply came into being beneath its hands, folding themselves into the glass bowls as if memory alone were enough to freeze cream and sugar into shape. Marisol leaned forward on her elbows. "Are you going to answer our questions, or are you just going to give us desserts to fatten us up before you kill us?" She paused. I'm joking, mostly. I don't actually think you're going to kill us," she said as she looked at her friends for reassurance. The being sat the final dish down in front of her. Then, after a beat, Marisol added, The game was really cool. It was awesome, by the way. How did you do that?" she said with a fake confidence through a whisper, trying to mask her anxiety. That made the being's internal light brighten in a slow, warm pulse. Then it answered, "We wish to see how you would adapt to the strange." Its voice was calm, neither male or female, but full of a strange clarity. "Fear distorts answers, so do stereotypes. You probably expected us to be gods or monsters. We wanted to see something else. That's why games are useful. You know? Games reveal instinct, cooperation, morality, improvisation, attachment to outcome, attachment to power, attachment to self." Mara narrowed her eyes. "So you just test people reality distorted video games?" "We observe," it said simply. The being tilted its head slightly. "You did not turn on one another. You did not attack us first. You did not kill when you could have. You did not seek riches, wishes, escape, or dominion. You sought understanding. You sought the shape of the game. This is rare. You are simply accepted. You simply accepted the impossible and played." Mara did not soften. that still doesn't make you the moral standard. And that, the being's glow dimmed for a moment, not offensive, exactly, but thought. What do you call morality? What you call morality is not locally owned to this planet, it said. What we sought was not obedience, only orientation. Yara leaned forward. And what orientation did we give you? That you are less cruel than you pretend, more curious than you admit, more extraordinary than your environment allows you to appear. Silence followed that. Even Marisol didn't have a joke ready. The being continued. We have done this before. Often the result is greed, violence, worship, refusal. You focused on each other. You focused on structure. You focused on how to proceed. This interested us. Mara looked down at her melting milk chocolate chip, then back up. So that's it? You just came here to run a morality experiment? The being light shifted again, moving in soft gold through its celadon translucent of its chest. Then, almost as an afterthought, it reached beneath the counter and drew out a single sheet of paper. Real paper, not holographic, not projected, not synthetic. It laid the page in front of them with 4 marked lines at the bottom. I would like for you all of you to sign your names. None of them touched it. Marisol pointed at the page. For what? It's not a contract, it said calmly, as it glowed from within. Yara frowned. Then what is it? The being's inner light brightened in a way that felt impossibly like a smile. It's for a close friend. Mara looked at it for a long moment. And who would that be? This time, the being did smile, or the nearest thing it could manage. The molten colors within it gathered in a soft upward bloom. And for the first time all night, its blank face seemed almost gentle. It was requested, it said. And that, every sound in the shop seemed to hush itself. The hum of the lights, the drip of the melting ice cream, the faint, distant music of some impossible truck beyond the walls. All of it bent around the name. Marisol looked at the others first. Then Mara did. Then Leanne. Then Yara. And one by one, still not fully understanding what it meant, but understanding enough to know that they had crossed too many thresholds to pretend otherwise. They took the pen and wrote down their names. Outside, somewhere beyond the shop windows, the simulation subsided.
Humans have always imagined first contact as a spectacle, a visitation, an interrogation, a terror bright enough to justify our oldest fears. We imagine the unknown in our own image, then call it truth. But Mara and her friends learned something stranger in the woods that night. Beyond the static, beyond the green men and their impossible games, lay a question no species can outrun forever. What does it mean to know we are not alone and still remain what we are? Perhaps the burden was never to fear what waits beyond us, but to survive what stirs within us once the illusion of our singularity is gone. We are not the only witnesses in the dark. We are only the ones still deciding whether we will save ourselves before we destroy what little is left to save. This concludes our broadcast of Wait Your Turn. Until the next submission for the last broadcaster.